Good morning, everyone. 9:15 a.m. Central Time. Where are you? You're right here with all of the CSLDallas community that loves the Sunday morning Science of Mind class, Facebook live streaming directly to wherever you are. My name is Tracy Brown, and I am so delighted to dive into the Science of Mind textbook written by Ernest Holmes. And if this happens to be your first time, that's what we do every week. We just take a little bit of the textbook, talk about it, share examples of how it works in our lives, and try to grow and stretch our understanding of metaphysics, science of mind, and new thought. Please join me in a centering breath, a centering smile, and a centering word, love. We are in chapter 18. It is the chapter that is titled The Law of Attraction. And in every chapter, there are subsections. And we are starting today at the bottom of page 302 in the section titled No Failures. Now, clearly in this chapter, focused on the law of attraction, it's important for us to think about the mental atmosphere that we are creating, because it is that mental atmosphere that we are using to attract that which we want to experience, whether that be specific material things or whether that might be a general environment or general experience of life, whether it might be a quality of God that we want to grow and expand in our life, like joy or abundance. Whatever it is we are desiring, using the law of attraction requires us to create a mental atmosphere. And then in the chapter before this section, Ernest Holmes writes about attracting success, attracting friends, and some specific areas that we might focus on. But in this part of the chapter, he reminds us that there is no failure. There are no failures. So let's dive in. If one appears to have failed, she should realize that there are no failures in the universe. She should completely erase the idea of failure by stating that there are no failures. If one believes that she failed last year, she will be likely to fail again this year unless the thought is erased. Break down everything except the recognition of the one perfect power, which is not contingent upon any place, person, condition, time of year, or anything but itself. A demonstration is made when it comes straight through from the truth. The one who wishes to make a demonstration must clear up her own subjective atmosphere, the reason being that she may be objectively making statements which her subjective thought may be denying. In this way, we often neutralize our word as fast as it is spoken. Wow. So remembering that there are no failures in the universe, one of the things that I do that helps me do that or remember that or believe it, which is probably even more important, is I remember that Spirit has infinite or is infinite intelligence, and no matter what happens, it is able to rearrange anything and everything in order to move forward. Spirit is always moving forward. God is always thinking of creating, developing, demonstrating, manifesting the next thing. So it never gets stuck in one place, and it never looks at that as, oh, that's horrible. So in the universe, there are no failures because we are dealing with an infinite intelligence that knows what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and why. And it is simply rearranging, 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 rearranging. However, if Tracy is saying, wow, that didn't work last year, that didn't work the year before, I'm never going to be able to get this thing that I want or experience that which I want. And the universe is simply saying yes to my subjective mind. Then I could wake up every morning and do an affirmation that says, I am attracting X, Y, or Z. But my subjective mind, my subconscious mind, my self-talk, my false belief is that's not going to work. Well, the universe is saying yes to that. It's not that I failed, except maybe I am stuck and I keep repeating the same choice, the same action, the same pattern. So I keep getting the same results. So Ernest Holmes says something really important in this first paragraph. If one appears to have failed, he should realize there are no failures in the universe and should completely erase the idea of failure by stating there are no failures. So I know I can't hear you, but I can feel your energy. So repeat after me. There are no failures. There are no failures. Say it with me 3 times. There are no failures. There are no failures. There are no failures. Ernest Holmes instructs us to actually say it, not just think it, because we are overcoming our patterns and our habits that are going on subconsciously. By stating there are no failures, my brain not only has to form the words, but I have to form them in my head, then I have to form them in language. I speak them, and I hear myself speak them. So I end up getting 5 impressions in my brain as I translate out and then translate it back in. Every time I say it, I am breaking through or breaking up any old beliefs, any false beliefs. So Ernest Holmes isn't just like abstractly saying, oh, it'd be good for you to state it. He gives us the instruction, completely erase the idea of failure by stating there are no failures, and reminding us if one believes that he failed last year, he will be likely to fail again this year unless the false thought is erased. So that first paragraph does remind us there are no failures in the universe, and what we have to do to manage our own subjective mind is to erase the thought that failure is even possible for God, even possible for our own life, which you might need a reminder that your own life is an expression of God, God experiencing life in, as, and through you. But I digress. Let's go to the next paragraph. When Jesus said, resist not, he meant that non-recognition of evil is the only way to avoid it. This is true according to the law of cause and effect. For what we persist in recognizing, we persist in holding in place. That which we refuse to recognize, we neutralize. and it is no longer there so far as we are concerned. Yeah, I have to stop there. This is a paragraph that many people misunderstand or misapply. So at the surface level, Ernest Holmes is very clear, and he goes back to the master teacher, the example of Jesus, that Jesus said, resist not. Non-recognition of evil is the only way to avoid it. The way this is often misinterpreted is, well, I'll just pretend that bad thing didn't happen. Non-recognition of evil is the only way to avoid it. Well, Tracy, if you just didn't recognize racism, it just wouldn't exist. Well, Tracy, if you just ignored it, it wouldn't be true. You must be attracting it because you recognize it. No, that is not what this paragraph is saying. That is a misunderstanding or misuse of spiritual principle if you only take it literally and don't understand it. So Ernest Holmes in other places in the book does talk about, recognizing what is happening and then denying its power to define your life. So if I use the example that I just used, non-recognition of evil is the only way to avoid it. There are two things related to racism that I could use that would be applying this. Number one, non-recognition of evil is the only way to avoid it. In science of mind, we don't believe in good and evil. We don't believe that there is a binary, and we don't believe that there is evil as a force within itself. So everything is good, or it's leading to good, and we may have challenges, we may have difficulties, we have things that happen in our lives that are the result of collective consciousness or society or other people's choices. And we may not like that, but we don't define it as evil, because evil implies that there is a power. So in that sense, it's very simple. Non-recognition of evil is the only way to avoid it. So there is no evil, there is no one out to get me, there is no one out to ruin life. That's evil. So that's one way to frame what's happening. And if someone mistreats me based on, and they've made it clear, it's based on the color of my skin or my racial identity group, I don't assume that they as an individual are an evil person. I may think they're misguided, I may think they're uninformed, I'm very clear they don't know me, but I'm going to be operating of how do I manage or navigate this situation toward good, which is different from ignoring it and saying it doesn't exist. The next sentence, the law of cause and effect, for what we persist in recognizing, we persist in holding in place. Because I acknowledge that there are people in the world who choose to treat other people in a negative way based on racial identity characteristics, I don't accept that. I don't promote that. But if I interpret that refusing to recognize it means to pretend it is not happening, that does not allow me to neutralize it, right? Because I'm pretending it doesn't exist at all. So in Ernest Holmes' instructions to neutralize something, we are not holding it in place. We are saying, this exists, it is not the truth of life as God designed life to be, and we take action to neutralize the impact of it. That could be educating people, that could be doing spiritual work, that could be walking in a protest march, that could be a lot of things that neutralize that which is happening that is not in alignment with love, peace, joy, beauty, wholeness, abundance. So Ernest Holmes is very clear throughout the textbook that not recognizing evil is not the same as pretending, if I'm doing my spiritual work, nothing bad will ever happen to me or nothing difficult will ever happen. So this paragraph again, now that I've talked, I'm going to read it again and then read the next paragraph, and then I'm going to be coming to you because I'm curious for you. How have you brought this idea that there are no failures in the universe into your understanding, into your life and experiences you may have had? So repeating this second paragraph and then going into the third. When Jesus said, resist not, he meant that non-recognition of evil is the only way to avoid it. This is true according to the law of cause and effect. For what we persist in recognizing, we persist in holding in place. That which we refuse to recognize, we neutralize, and it is no longer there so far as we are concerned. So we erase any idea of failure. Now here is where it looks as if one were not telling the truth to himself, but he is declaring the truth about the spirit that indwells him. This spirit never fails. Affirm this until it is a very part of your being. This word blots out from the book of my remembrance any sense of lack, limitation, want, or fear of failure. There is no failure, no person to fail. Failure is neither person, place, nor thing. Failure is a false thought and has no truth in it. Failure is a belief in lack, and there is no lack. It is a belief in limitation which does not exist. So what about you? Where have you moved from believing in failure to understanding that spirit never fails? And how has that come up in your life? Or what questions do you have about how to apply this very important concept to a situation that you're experiencing in your life right now? Those are the two questions I have for you. And in case this is your first time, I'm going to ask Ryan to give you some instructions about how to share.
Well, good morning to you, Tracy Brown, Dr. Tracy Brown.
Good morning, Ryan Brown.
And good morning to everybody who is with us out here on Zoom and Facebook Live. We love and appreciate you all for being here with us today. And yes, as Tracy mentioned, there are a couple ways that you can interact with us, and this is what this is all about. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your experiences. And if you're with us in the Zoom room, you can hit the raise your hand icon located down below, or you can always put your questions and comments inside of the Q&A or comments field, and I can bring those into the room. And the same goes true for those who are watching us on Facebook Live. Go ahead and put your questions inside the comment fields, and I'll bring them into the room. And as always, I like to keep it anonymous, so that way we can create a safe container for everybody to share their thoughts. So I do see one just as kind of an affirmation of what you were talking about. It says, it's not about ignoring, it's about not recognizing its power or permanence. So
yes, that is exactly the difference or the distinction that is important for us to remember.
Absolutely. So would anybody like to raise their hand and share their experience? I would love to hear from you. I know me and Tracy always love to hear your questions or comments. All right. Looks like we do have a couple. So I'm going to go ahead. Carl, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, Carl?
Yes, can you hear me? Hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you well. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning. Well, this is great, Trace. I've so enjoyed your series that you've been doing on these last few sessions and on Sunday morning. But anyway, I love this. The spirit never fails, because failure is something that comes up for me. Like it'll come up like, oh my God, you're a failure, or I am. You're never going to make this thing work. It won't, and that failure. And so I've gone out to the book and I'll say, Carl, the spirit never fails. It's okay. And then I started, this word blots out from the book of my remembrance and so on. And as I'm affirming that, it gives me there's something else that it does really, I feel better. I was wondering if you could say something about what is actually, when I'm saying this, I am affirming it, I know it does make me feel better, feel good. I feel like, even as I'm looking at it now, and as you were saying it's like, wow, the spirit never fails. I mean, it's like, because I know that I know I'm human, and part of me is spirit. I am spirit. And it's like, it's recognizing it. So what would you say to that?
Oh, beautiful. And yeah, it's funny. It makes you feel better to say it. And when the more you say it, the more you believe it. So one of the things that I think might be happening, Carl, too, is because you know it and you've said it, you've also built some belief in it as a truth. Spirit never fails. Spirit never fails. And so if spirit never fails, it can never fail me, moving me toward what it is I want to attract. But it can never fail in any form. So the reason we use affirmations is we are trying to convince ourselves. We are not convincing God or spirit of anything. And we're reminding ourselves of the truth with a capital T that is, as you said, Carl, you know that you are having a human experience, and you also know that you are divine, that you are spirit expressing. We get wrapped up in the human experience because we can touch it, it's tangible, it's coming at us, and it's physical, so it feels real, and it is real in that sense. That means the more we attach to it, the less we are conscious of the invisible truth of our wholeness, our beauty, our joy, our ability to express. So it works because you're just reconnecting. Every time you say it, you are reconnecting with the truth of your spirituality, of your divinity. And it's almost like when I connect with my divinity, I give myself permission to live with that as my guidance instead of whatever society has fed me as guidance. So great example. And one other comment that I will add, because I hear Dr. Petra's voice in my head saying it, Carl, if it makes you feel better, that is the expansion, that sense of expansion into the infinite reality. And when we say and do things that make us contract or make us feel small, we know that we may be getting grounded in the human, and it can make us smaller. So always follow that which makes you feel expansive and grounded, and pay attention to the things that make you contract, so that you can do what Ernest Holmes writes here: refuse to recognize its power and neutralize it. So, okay, that's the foundation for a whole, I don't know, not even a Sunday talk, a whole 4-week class. So I'm going to stop right there because I know we have at least one more person who wants to comment.
Yes, that's why you need to keep tuning in to the Sunday morning Science of Mind class.
Yes.
Because you get these pearls of wisdom from Dr. Tracy Brown. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we do have a couple folks. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Connie to unmute yourself. Connie, do you want to join us?
Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, everybody. I've mentioned this before, and I want to say it again because it fits right in, and I'm learning this too. When I teach English as a second language in the classroom, and a student says something that's not correct,
Yes.
I don't hammer on them and say, oh, you made a mistake. No, very gently and with compassion, with ease, I tell them, the correct way. And then I tell them, this is, you haven't made a mistake. We don't have mistakes. We don't allow them in the room. They are not here. And let's call it something else. We can call it anything we want. We can name it. We name things. And we could call it tree or apple or banana or whatever. Let's call it an opportunity for learning. And it's a gift. It's a gift. It's a gift to you. It's an opportunity for learning. But also, it's a gift to the whole class because several others probably have the same issue that they need. And I need it too. I need to understand that when I do something that is not correct, it's an opportunity for learning. So thank you. And we leave it at that. And they just, a sense of relief comes over the whole room. Before, the student wanted to crawl under the chair, and hide. Hey, you're learning, for goodness sake. Come on, let's go. And it changes. Yeah, it's really, really wonderful.
Yes, I hear your voice with that, right? There are no mistakes in this room. It is an opportunity for learning. Another way to think about that you just reminded me of, Connie, is I have built a little bit of a reputation around sharing with people in an educational setting. I give you a learner's permit, and we talk about what does it mean to have a learner's permit, and that you are expected to not get it right because you are learning, and when you don't quite get it right, that's how you learn to correct that. So thanks for reminding me of that this morning. And I think you are giving your students such a gift to be able to give them the environment where they can put some distance between mispronouncing a word and learning the correct word or phrase, and then apply that into their lives in other places. What a great gift you are giving them. Who's next, Ryan?
Yes, so now I'd like to call Brenda into the room. Brenda, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join us?
Good morning, community family. I've missed you and look forward to seeing you very, very, very soon. Good morning, Dr. Brown. Fascinating discussion, because what this sparked in me, everything you've said is true. When I'm in my spiritual groundedness, it's very easy to say there are no mistakes. And when I'm mired in my humanness, in that failure or I can't or unworthiness, there are actually two teachings from Science of Mind that I've learned, incorporating, that have helped me to get back to that center. And the first is the concept that all of this negative script happened when I was very, very young as a child. Science of Mind defines that I am awakened when I come into the consciousness of the truth of my nature and reality. So as a 3-year-old, I couldn't possibly know how to do adult tasks. And so therefore it helps me have greater compassion for the choices in my life before I was awakened. And to tie into that, the second learning, I think was even a post from Dr. Petra, maybe even yesterday, that the butterfly, as it emerges, does not turn back and negatively judge the cocoon or the caterpillar. And those two thoughts, when I'm in my humanness and in that woundedness, is what I use to help bring me back to that centeredness, that I am just an experience that the universal all is having, and it's all okay. Thank you.
Wow. So, I don't even have anything to add to that. The wisdom and the application, thank you, Brenda. And this is what we talk about. We talk about, it's one thing to take a class or, come to a Sunday service and enjoy it. So that's one thing. Second thing, to come to a class or come to a Sunday service and be able to repeat a few words or phrases that become kind of, not cliches, but they become, oh, I know this works and I can sound really smart about it. And there's value in that. And then there's that third level of actually taking the elements from a class or a Sunday service or a daily word from Dr. Petra and applying it and seeing how it really works in your life and in life in general. And that's what Brenda just did. Like, to be able to say, oh, here's the concept and here's how I make sense of it. And when I catch myself being more human than divine in a way that is not serving me, here are two things I've learned that I can actually remember and apply, and they help guide me back to my centered state. And for you, it might be two different key principles or core principles that we teach. For you, it may be a different quote from a different page in the Science of Mind textbook. But this is where we're all wanting to be able to do what Brenda just modeled so beautifully and be able to say, this is what happens in my life, and here's how I apply the principle, and I then manifest an improved way of being that is in alignment with the divinity that is expressing as me. So beautiful, beautiful shares. Ryan, do you have anything else before, or anyone else before I move into the next section?
Well, yes, I do, and I didn't know we were playing a game of Stump the Doctor. This is great. All right, so one of the questions, and I do want to bring this into the room because I thought it was a really great question to ask. It asks, as a recovering perfectionist, how do I break the habit of fearing failure?
So, number one, get rid of that label. A recovering perfectionist. You're already perfect. God made you perfect. God created you as a perfect expression of who you are, and live into that perfection. So I don't want anyone to recover from perfection. I want everyone to live into the perfection that has been planted within you before you were even in physical form. That invisible perfection that is the truth of who you are. So that is like my first reaction. And then there's nothing to recover from, and there's nothing to replace, except you're replacing this idea that the perfection of that society describes is more important than the perfection that you were created as. Not created to become. You were created as this perfect light of abundance, joy, beauty, wholeness. You were created as this perfect light that expresses all of the qualities of God. And that is when you recognize, and when you recognize that your mission, your life, is simply going through all life conditions, reconnecting with that perfection that already is and living it, then you are focused on what you want and who you truly are instead of what you're not doing or what other people think you should do or how you should be. Now, this is a little tricky because I am not implying that we totally ignore the expectations, needs, or desires of everyone else. We can't do that, right? There are collective expectations. As I was driving from my home to CSLDallas this morning, there is a collective expectation that when Tracy approaches a traffic signal and the light is red, that Tracy is going to put her foot on the brake and stop so that the traffic and other going north and south can pass. And when the light turns green, Tracy will put her foot on the accelerator and continue to travel west. Those expectations don't have anything to do with the value of who I am or the perfection of me as a person, as a being navigating a human experience. So it's a both and it is always happening. So let's not recover from perfectionism. Let us reveal the capital P perfection that is seeking to express in, as, and through us. Focus on what we want and spend less energy on judging ourselves around the things we don't want or the way we do not want to be in the world. I'll stop there.
And my mind has been melted. I love it. Do you want one more before we move forward? Okay, I just wanted to check with you. So this question asks, and this is on the same vein, so this is great to move into. How does one resolve the effects of a perceived failure when there are tangible results of it on this plane of existence?
Beautiful. And I'm breathing because I had 6 things drop into my mind all at the same time from that short but very relatable question. So I'm going to reframe it slightly. How do we recover from failure when we're living in the consequence of whatever choice we made? We recover because we first do what Ernest Holmes writes in this section. We remember there are no failures. On either page 290 or 292 in the previous chapter, there's the quote, "There are no mistakes, there never have been, there never will be." So if I believe that everything is happening for me, not to me, then no matter how broken it feels or I feel, no matter how challenging it is, no matter what the valuation of whatever has occurred on the human scale, if I am spiritually grounded and I am doing my spiritual work, I am going to keep reminding myself that this happened for me to learn, for me to grow. This happened to put me in a situation where I can learn something new, meet someone new, make a different choice. Remember, in Science of Mind, we are really always teaching you always have a choice, and you can always make the next choice, and the next choice, and the next choice. So when I make a choice and the outcome of it hurts me or hurts other people, yes, there is a consequence to that choice, not a punishment. There is the law of cause and effect. I made a choice, and the effect of that is bankruptcy, or the effect of that is divorce, or the effect of that is fear, or the effect of that, right? I made a choice, or please hear me, someone else made a choice, and the impact of their choice is having an effect on me. Someone else made a choice to drive intoxicated and ran into my car, and I am in the hospital, or I have now a disability, or right, something happens. I didn't make that choice, but that choice was made, and now I am living in the effect of that choice. But now I get to make a choice for what do I do here and tomorrow and going forward. So when we really believe, truly believe, that we live lives of choice, and we can always choose to get into alignment with the principles of spirit, the principles of God, the qualities of God, then whatever has happened and whatever the consequences or effects of those choices is, I still, from where I sit right now in this moment, with this next breath, I am responsible for the choices I make. That's how we move through it, and we focus as we are making our choices on what do we want. The mistake most of us make is we get trapped in the how awful this is. This is unfair. This is not what I want. I never get what I want. I don't know if this stuff really works. If that's what I'm feeding myself, then I'm going to get doubt and confusion and continuation of whatever situation I'm in. If I accept and recognize this is the effect of what has happened up till now, and this is the vision I have, this is the desire I have going forward, and now I start making choices that move me in that direction, I am no longer looking backwards and giving whatever happened in the past the power to define my next moment, my next year, or my next decade. That is how we do it. There's no magic to it. There's no, I wish it would be different. But the reality is it's going to be hard. The reality is I will never recover from that accident. The reality is I can never rebuild my life. If that's what I'm telling myself is the reality, that's exactly what is going to manifest. That is how we, from a human perspective, that is how we dig ourselves out of the hole. From a spiritual perspective, that is how we breathe and shine in the illumination of the divine. And I am looking at the clock. I don't know how it happens, but it seems like every week when we get just ready to go deeper and deeper into what Ernest Holmes wrote about and what he meant, and it gets rich and juicy, we get reminded that we're in a temporal universe where we are guided by time and space on the continuum, and the clock says we have 1 minute remaining. So that just means you have to come back next week, 9:15 a.m. Central Time, right here on Facebook live stream, or check it out anytime later in the day or the week for a little dose of The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. My name is Tracy Brown. So delighted to be with you, and I wish you will join us by live stream or in person for the Sunday celebration at 10:30 a.m. Central Time, or join us next week. Bye for now.